Well, we'll crack on with it. Good morning, I'm Jeremy Savage. I wear quite a few hats when I'm here doing the presentation at Lincoln University Dairy Farm Days. So I'm a farm consultant with McFarlane Business Ashburton. I'm working with Peter Hancock's as a farm consultant for the university, and I'm also stepped in to help with a South Island dairy demonstration for the extension for these days as well. So welcome here. Glad we changed the venue. We were just looking at that weather forecast and the southerly screaming up the island, and I actually got to enjoy that southerly twice. So I was in Southland yesterday for it in the hail, and I landed in Christchurch Airport at 6 o'clock last night and got hit with it again. So it's just a gift that keeps giving, that one. Just from a health and safety point of view, exits down this end. There is exits that way, but I'd suggest you take that exit because that's where the muster point is on that side of the building over there. Toilets, for those of you who didn't notice, it's down at the entrance and to the left down the hallway there as well. Our run day for today is going to be presentations around farming under nitrogen caps, which Virginia Sierra from Dairy NZ is going to be chairing. That's after you'll hear from Peter and I around how the farm's gone for the season. We'll have a bit of it's going to be a bit of a long session, so we're well aware of that. So we've got a bit of a break there for a bit of water and sustenance, and then we're going to have a session on pasture management and some of the principles of that as well, and some tools available for you as farmers. And also I'd like to acknowledge the sponsors of the day, Ravensdown, for the food and helping out with the venue here as well, and also thanks guys for getting chairs out and those sorts of things for us as well. So thanks to Ravensdown for your support. Peter, you come up and let's have a bit of a yarn about how spring's gone to date. So those of you who haven't met Peter Hancock, you've been around for 15 odd years, yep. 15 seasons. So
yes.
Yep. So and in your handout we've got some sort of graphs and comments around our season as well. But Peter, let's talk us through this spring. How did we go?
Yeah, obviously this spring's probably been one of the better ones we've had for some time that I can actually remember. Cows wintered really well. We had quite a wet spell, sort of mid-July, but after that it got very, very dry. Feed, we obviously didn't start the season off with as high a cover as what we have done some seasons, but feed utilisation was exceptional this year, so very limited amount of supplements through that first round. We were only feeding around about 2 kgs a cow a day of silage towards the end of August, early September, just to get that first round finished. I see it says here in the handout that we finished around about that 12th of September for the first round. It was actually around the 18th we finished that first round and started our second round. At that stage we stopped feeding supplement. We looked like we were going to sort of be quite good with grass and head along quite nicely. But it's all come to a screaming halt. We're in a big hole at the moment. It's just got so cold, dry, cold. We started irrigation pretty early. One of the earliest I can remember starting irrigation, especially here on the heavier soils. And it was just so dry, cold. We sort of need to be growing at the moment around that 70 for demand. This week just gone, we're sort of back around the mid-40s of growth. So a couple of weeks ago we had that real cold spell come through, sort of about a -5 degree frost, and that really put the brakes on everything. It just, shriveled everything up, and it's not recovered very well since. So currently feeding about 7 kgs of silage a day over the last week, just making sure that we're sort of holding around that 25, 26 day round, and hoping that we're going to get some grass going away, but it's still looking cold at the moment. In terms of condition of the cows and that, they got condition on quite well over winter and came back quite good condition, and they've held it reasonably well through now, and obviously heading into mating.
So actually we'll bounce around, but animal health, Peter, that staff seems to work pretty well, hasn't it, in terms of the culling program that you did there?
Yep. So going through this calving season, we've had about half the amount of mastitis cases we've had previous season. And yeah, no, it's been going really well. Lameness is still an issue, but a lot less than what we've had this time last year. So, and some of that's down to, we did quite a bit of preventative stuff through the back half of last season. Just got the hoof trimmer guy in and did a lot of pre sort of trimming and that to try and help out for the season. It seems to have hopefully worked a wee bit better.
So one of our goals was to minimise our calf wastage on LEDF. Last year we tried to rear the calves through to weaning. Facilities weren't quite there, our sheds weren't big enough, we didn't have enough outside, and our block that we were rearing them on, the east block, ran out of grass, so it got a bit tight and it got a bit expensive. It added about 20 cents a kilo milk solids to our cost structure. So how did we go this year, Peter? What was our plan?
Yeah, so this year we've attacked a wee bit differently. On farm, obviously last mating season, we did all AI, so no bulls. We did 11 weeks of AI, so sort of 5 weeks of good AI, sex semen and keepable heifers. We identified that we're going to have a few surplus AI heifers, so instead of taking them through to weaning like we have other years, the reason we've done that obviously because of the DNA all our replacement heifers and then keep the best ones. This year we made a decision to get rid of surplus ones at 4 days old, so it worked quite well. There wasn't a great market for them this year, so we've put them out the gate at 4 days old, 4 to 10 days old at $80 a head, and 37 of them left. We thought on paper we were going to have a lot more than that, but we kept about 170, and we've just got the DNA results back on them, just working through that now, so make sure that we get about 160 replacements. So during the AI season last year, we also put the bottom 30% of our BW of our herd to beef, to Angus, and that worked quite well, and we managed to sell 116 calves, 4 days to 10 days old at $80 as well, so that worked really well. Certainly our goal was to limit the amount of bobby calves that we put on the bobby calf truck. I personally don't see how we can do that 100%, but we certainly reduced it, and I think we'll reduce it a wee bit more going forward.
So I think we're based on 85% survival of calves, and it's not a number of double-checked around our slink numbers, but we've been able to find a home for 70% of our calves, so we're pretty happy with that result. Leads us into mating for this year, Peter. What are we up to there?
Yep, so just slightly different this year. Past years we've mated our yearling heifers. This year they're grazing on the other side of Ashburton, so just the distance-wise it's a bit far away to do that. So we've put bulls out with them, and we're still going to do obviously all AI through the herd this year. So to compensate not getting the replacement heifers out of those yearlings, we're going to use a bit more sex semen. So 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks of mating, we were going to use 12 straws a day of sex semen, and then through week 4 and possibly week 5, we'll drop that down to sort of 6 straws a day, depending on what conception rate's looking like. Once again, we're going to drop out the bottom 20 to 30% of the herd and mate to Angus, and then through that sort of first 5 weeks of keepable AI stuff, and then we'll do 2 to 3 weeks of just block all Angus across anything that returns, and then for the last 2.5 to 3 weeks it'll be all short gestation. I'm not sure, some of you might have been here 2 or 3 years ago where I was sort of quite reluctant to be doing all AI right through, but I think the big benefit for us is having that short gestation at the end. It's really compacted our calving, given us more days in milk. This year, on paper, our last cow was due to calve on the 27th of September, but one didn't calve till about the 3rd or 4th of October, but all the rest had calved before then, so it certainly gets quite compact, and I think it's going to give us big advantage going forward, cow cycling, going into mating this weekend.
I mean, a key point there too is typically that last, at the tail end of your mating period, for every week you go further, your empty rate will drop about 1.5 to 1.8%. So when we can use short gestation semen and for another 2 weeks like Peter's doing, that allows us to drop our empty rate by between 3 to 4%. So it's really valuable around cow selection. Staffing, Peter?
Yep, so this season we've had really good staff, as we have most seasons. I think the benefit this season, we actually had all staff on farm sort of on the 1st of June going forward, which was a big advantage to the season before. We sort of had staff starting in early first week of August, and that sort of, having them on earlier was really good and had them all up to speed, and it's worked really well. So obviously this calving season's certainly been one of the easiest ones we've had for a while, just with the way the weather has been and all that. So, but no, all staff going really well. We do have one staff member at the moment. She wanted to go off and do train to be an AI technician, so we've given her the time off through this period to go do that. Sort of something I probably wouldn't do, but when I thought we've done a bit of an upgrade with the irrigation, we've got fixed grid on all and off block, so that's going to cut back our workload a wee bit. So that's probably why I thought it was possible for us to do that.
So for the finances, Peter's got a real headache here because Peter's got 2 budgets and 2 people to try and impress. So he's got the university, which is on a financial year, 12-month financial year. So he's answerable to Christine, the university there. And then he's also got another budget, which we try and use the same numbers for the advisory board and for you as farmers as well. So he's answerable to 2 groups. So good luck with that, Peter. You're doing well. So Peter, how are we going this year in terms of our dairy year budget? You've got some numbers there. Do you want me to go through it? So we've put that on your handout there as well. So our original plan was sort of 275,000 with a 395 cost structure. Your sort of key points there at the moment, Peter?
Yeah, we're pretty much not far off target. Obviously, you put me on the spot here, but I haven't looked at this too well. You probably know more about this than me.
I'll talk to you if you like.
You talk.
Yeah. So look, the key things that are over a wee bit at the moment, we used a bit more silage in the springtime, and we'd also gone through, we'd run our stocks down last autumn. So that was slightly dearer than planned. We had, it doesn't come into our farm working expenses, but it's noted on the sheet there. We had a bit of a blue last autumn with acorn poisoning of all things, where we lost 42 animals, so it was a bit of a shocker for Peter and the staff. And we've had to go, we were fortunate we were able to go out and replace them with our LEDF animals, surplus animals that we'd sold last year, so that's in the accounts there too. There's an pending insurance claim in our repairs and maintenance of about $20,000. The shed failed its shed audit, and the yard had to be repaired and grout put in them. And that cost about $20,000. So hoping to claim that back on insurance, and that will drop our cost structures and get us back on track as well. Animal health is over on our cost structures, but that's around timing. Our dry cow, which last year was in May, this year popped up in June, so we should catch that up by the end of the year. So looking forward for the next month, Peter, our grazing rules for October.
Yep. So
October, November.
Yep. So obviously, we wanted to get on to that 24 minimum, sort of 23, 24 day round, sort of around that 25, 26 day round, and sort of hold that going through. We even managed that sort of over the last couple of weeks with the low growth, but obviously we've had to put the silage in to be able to achieve that. And then going forward, we'll be looking to hold that going right through. So obviously that will put us in a wee bit higher covers, as we've talked about in the past, sort of hitting those 3.2, 3.3 covers. But as a lot of you are aware, we do have quite a lot of tetch deployed through our pastures, which just allows us to do that. So we can get away with doing that.
So one of the challenges you've got right now, Peter and David's going to talk about later on, is your cover's quite short. Do you think you're compromising growth at the moment?
Yeah, a wee bit. If we were on a quicker round, definitely, but holding the round length, we've done 26 days round length for the week just gone, so yeah, we can't really sort of, I think it's just the cold and dry that's holding it back. Like I said, I can't recall this farm being so dry at this time of year and so cold.
Yep, so that's a conscious decision you made to really look after the pastures and get maximum growth rates out of them.
Yep. Yeah. If we get down to 20-day round, we're just not, it's going to take us too much supplement to get out of a hole. Yeah, we just need to hold that round and to get out of it.
Yep, super. Good. Any questions about how the farm's gone this spring and what Peter's plans are over the next couple of months?
I have a question. I can't get the microphone to work. Peter, the mastitis has gone quite well. You mentioned, it wasn't just because of the season, or can you tell us a bit more on what you've done to have an improvement there?
Yeah, so both last year and this year, I think we averaged 114 for somatic cells last year, which is quite low for us. Season before, we actually had a bit of staph go through the herd, which was probably, it was quite bad at the time. We had to separate those cows. There's about 22 cows that had staph. We separated them out and we used to milk them at the end. And obviously we got rid of them towards the end of that lactation. I think that's actually done us quite a big favour because it's cleaned out the herd quite well. And we're sitting like at below 100 at the moment with our pickups each day. So, and mastitis cases are definitely a lot less. We still do blanket cow, dry cow, and blanket cow teat seal. Obviously a bit frowned upon, but because we send our cows away grazing on transport, you know, I think that we need to do that. If we were grazing next door, we'd certainly be a bit more selective. And obviously we're getting encouraged by our vets and that to be more selective going forward, so we are not always going to be able to do that. But I think that's had a big benefit on keeping our mastitis down in the spring. Yeah.
Great.
Well, good. We'll box on. And one of the other pieces of news for LEDF is that we've secured sort of a new grazier for our next season, several seasons. So we'll be it's with Campbell Tour up in Hororata, and in the past we've had heifers going to a number of graziers and struggled to get a long-term relationship with a grazier with our heifers, and our security on our winter grazing was a bit so-so because there's a quarry going there one day as well. So we're also conscious of being transparent with our winter feeding and our heifer grazing, getting consistent results, being able to record them and communicate them to you as well, around nitrogen leaching, greenhouse gases, etc. So Campbell's agreed to come on board with us, which is fantastic. He's a great farmer, and so we'll be able to incorporate our numbers around our grazing and our performance in our grazing with a bit more clarity for you in the future as well. So that's coming up too. Great.
The next part of the program, which is really talking about the regulations the new regulations that we have on us. We're really going to focus on the nitrogen cap, but we're going to touch very briefly on some of the other regulations. So we very briefly gonna do the policy stuff. We're gonna jump straight away into what we can actually do on farm to reduce nitrogen use and not affect the productivity and profitability of the farm. Just in terms of, we have quite a nice lineup of speakers. So my name is Virginia Serra. I work for the ENC, and I'm leading a project in the Hinds and Selwyn catchment. I've been doing that for the last 2 years, helping farmers identify ways of reducing nitrogen loss. So that's not nitrogen fertilizer input, just nitrogen loss in a way that is profitable to comply again to the requirements of reducing, for example, in Selwyn, 30% of nitrogen that we lose from our farms, and we need to do that by 2022. So it's kind of, and interestingly enough, nitrogen fertilizer has been one of the strategies that many of the farmers have actually already been doing So we have plenty of examples in how to go in that journey and not affect or not impact the results on the farm. So it's quite a bit of information there. So we're going to have Tammy Woods from ECAN first up, just to talk about how the Regional Council is dealing with these national regulations and how it is likely. And I know that there is a lot that they haven't decided yet. They are in the process there, but just a bit of a hint in how we may be able to implement those rules in the region. Then we have Ant Roberts from Ravensdown talking about, in general, probably nothing new, Ant, efficiency of nitrogen use. We've known this since Ant was a young scientist 20, 30, 40 years ago. But it's just probably bringing what are the key things that now we have to be on top of. And then we have a bit of more detail on the story of LUDF. LUDF have reduced nitrogen significantly from 300, 350 at one point to 170, I think, the latest one or whereabouts. And David Chapman, a principal scientist from Dairy NZ, has done a very good analysis of what's behind that, what actually happened with the pastures and the pasture qualities. And Peter want to have a bit of an input there from a management point of view. So now I have introduced kind of the whole session, so we go straight into that. I'm not a policy person, so I put that in there, but I'm just going to briefly talk about the 190 cap regulation. It's probably not, by now, most of us should be quite clear about it. The first time when it came out, we had a lot of questions about what does it mean? Was it going to be on an average of the farm? Is it going to be in every hectare? Now we know these things. So what we know is that it applies for every hectare of the farm under pastures. So pastures that are grazed by animals, if you think about your farm, every hectare where that happens will have to be under 190 kilos of nitrogen. So it's not the average for the whole farm like we thought earlier on, it's every hectare. When we cannot offset from areas that we're not grazing, so it's really effective hectares that we have to be thinking about. And we can put a bit more on forage crops. For example, if we have fodder beet, kale, we can put a bit more in there, but we have to offset by putting less on the pastoral area. So I guess that's probably kind of clear. And in terms of planning, the key thing for us to think about is, earlier on we were thinking about strategies to apply less on areas where stock camps or effluent areas and then kind of work out with the average. Now we really have to be thinking about every hectare. So from a management point of view, that's probably the most relevant aspect of the regulation. The other one, again, is about reporting. So we will have to report on the amount of nitrogen that we are putting on, where, and how much and where. So just thinking, are our systems good enough at the moment to do that? So that's kind of from a practical point of view, the next thing we have to think about. There is, so anyway, so a few things that we still kind of not too clear about, and that has to be, the area that we consider is continuous land holding. So if we have a milking platform and a support block that are next to each other, we can think about that as a unit, but if the support block is separate, we don't. So just probably that's another point that were quite a lot of questions when we did the first webinars on the topic. Now I think probably most people are clear on this. So the things that still perhaps to get more clarity, and maybe Tammy will bring some light into that, or maybe not, because still a few things they've been discussed at the moment, is the recording that is required, how is it going to be monitored? And then there is an option if we think that we're not going to get there by the time frame that is required, there is an option of asking for to apply for a non-compliant resource consent, and there is two options to do that. But really, if that's the avenue that some of you are thinking, it's really worth getting good advice about it because, and I will probably let Tammy comment on it, because it's not that easy to achieve this. But anyway, it is an option that can give us a little bit more time. So that's probably as much as I would want to say to really set the scene also for the next sessions that we have coming up. I will let Tammy come on stage now and just probably tell us as much as you can tell us from an ECAM point of view, because you, the guys, have to actually implement it in the region.